Hi, Marilyn. I don't know if you've had difficulties getting through, but it would appear a number of people have. So I've sent the invites out again, and we'll see where we get to. Okay, yep, I can see your chat now. Okay. I'm just going to hang on the line a minute or so just to see if I was wondering if I was in the wrong meeting first of all, but I think I'm okay. Right, let me. I'll share screens just for the minutes, so I don't have to look at my face all the time. Here we go. Right, here we go. Right. It does sound of my LinkedIn going now. I think send. Marilyn, just while we're waiting for a few others to come on in to the room, I don't know what's happening in your part of the world, but we have a bit of a heat wave over here going on just at the minute, and it's outside. It is about 38 degrees, which is for certain parts of Africa may not be actually all that hot, but it's unusually hot here, and it's very humid as well. So you'll forgive me having open neck shirt and all the rest of that. I'm a big fan. I hope the fan's not disturbing you at all, but here it's unprecedentedly warm. So I suspect there's a number of people that may have decided to go into gardening mode or something like that. What have we got? Fantastic. Submit. Hi, Shamini. Welcome. I suspect that well, first of all, I hope you're well, but Shamini, you're only a few miles from where I am, so it's going to be whilst it's 38 outside here, it's almost certainly going to be 38 outside where you are as well. So I think there might be a number of people that decided they just can't concentrate on a Zoom call for the minute. But the most important people are the people that are here. I think we're 5 minutes in now, so if it's okay with you, Marilyn and Shamini, I am. We're recording already. And am I? Yes, we are. Okay, so we're recording already, and as you've registered for this, you'll have access to this as well. So I am assuming that you can see my shared screen just at the minute, in which case I'm going to go on through. One thing's for sure, for certain, we are going to be finishing. Hey, everyone. Hi, Shamini. There we go. Sorry, you're on mute, but it doesn't. you're on mute, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so what I'm going to do is talk about negotiating and closing, and I hope, Shamini, my fan isn't interfering with the microphone at all. We should be okay. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So I'm going to try and make this not death by PowerPoint. I'm going to try and make it interactive. So feel free to put something in the chat, or if you want to come off mute. This is not supposed to be a lecture in any way, and I'm really hoping it will be valuable valuable too, as well. That's the whole point. Okay, so last week we went through pursuit strategies, some takeaways about what's the size of the prize of the deal that we're working on, who needs to say yes, who could say no, be powerful enough to bring it all to a halt. And we talked about champions, people that support us, or detractors, people that support someone else, because if you're not for us, you're against us, and all of that. We also talked about hope is not a strategy, it's. There we go. There's a couple of people coming in just now. I think the internet might be on a bit of a go slow. What would be really helpful, actually, as we're waiting for Joanne to come through, is would you mind just putting into the chat box to everyone whereabouts in the world you are? Because I know we've got Joanne, welcome to the call. Interestingly, all women, so I'm really encouraged to hear that. I'm a big proponent of women being more prominent in the business workspace. So and here we are. So if you could put in the chat exactly whereabouts in the world you're from, Shamini. I can't see your house from here, but I know you're not too far away. Joanne, I beg your pardon, I can't remember whereabouts in the world you are. Marilyn, I believe you're in beautiful South Africa. East London from memory, and yes, thumbs up, that's always a good sign. Reactions on Zoom, and we're going to welcome Fermin into the room in just a second. But anyway, from last week, what do you mean? So and hope, this is a Lancastrian from Lancashire term. Now I know we're in Yorkshire, but it's a global world. And Fermin, good morning to you. They were saying of hope, it doth butter no parsnips, which is a fantastic expression. I only heard it fairly recently, and I love it. I love parsnips too, and that's probably why. But you know, hope on its own is not going to make it work for you. You've got to have a strategy. By all means, we should be positive and all of those things, but hope on its own, despite what politicians tell you, is not going to get you over the line. So Fermin, welcome. I'm just recapping from last week. What happens if you lose? If you're an employee, as I was when I got most of my major learning from this, you know, we might have to, that can be career limiting in some companies, or at least career constraining. When you own your own business, has a different effect, but all these things have to be considered. And have you got what it takes to win? So do you need, and this is not a pitch for training or mentoring, there are plenty of sales trainers and mentors out there, but have you got the experience? Is there someone on, preferably in your company, that's going to help you get that deal over the line? Or is there someone in your network? We're on LinkedIn here. Is there someone in your network that has the experience that can coach or mentor you through that process? That's incredibly important. And what support might you need, which we've just kind of been through, and how you manage your manager. I'd reference that too. Brilliant. Okay, so let's get into, beg your pardon, today. This is the 7 steps of a best practice sales process. And Joanne, I think yours is a fairly new name, if you don't mind me saying so. So be familiar with these steps, but at the beginning, value proposition, what you sell, who you sell it to, all those things, that's your value proposition, how you transform your customers' lives. And then we have go-to-market strategy, how we generate the right kind of leads, qualify those opportunities. Do we want them? Do we not? Pursuit strategy, if it's a larger one, larger opportunity, more strategic, what does it take? And that's what we did last week. Today, we're talking about negotiating and closing. And it's a massive, massive subject. I'm only going to touch on the first principles here, which I hope will give you some sort of background into the sort of mindset. I was going to play, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Monty Python at all, which is, I'm what's known as a Pythonist. I'm a big fan of Monty Python. They have a fantastic sketch in a movie called Life of Brian, which is not for everyone, but about haggling. And that's the thing that always comes to mind when I think of negotiating, haggling in the Grand Bazaar in Morocco, or whatever it happens to be. That whole process can feel kind of brutal sometimes, and it's not. And the whole point is it's supposed to make you uncomfortable. That's what the other person is depending on. So that's what we're coming on. And next week, by the way, sorry. Next week, we're going to be talking about maximizing yield. You'll notice those 7 best practice business-to-business process steps do not end with closing the sale. It's probably the most important thing to remember, is because once you've got that sale, once you've got that client, that customer spending money with you, then what are you going to do then? How are you going to sell them more of your stuff? And that's really interesting subject. We're going to talk about Firmin. You might understand that by wallet share, how you're going to increase share of wallet for whatever it is you're selling. And Shamini, in your world, if you're doing a sort of corporate sort of bonding, and away days, doing fantastic curries, who else are you going to sell to in that big company? So you've organized one sort of departments off-site, if you like, bonding experience. Who else are you going to sell to? That's what I mean by wallet share or maximizing yield. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so housekeeping for negotiate to win. The whole point of negotiating is that you're here and your customer is here, and it might be about price, it might be about the number of spaces on your course, it might be about the number of software licenses that you're selling, it might be about the number of blogs that you're going to write for a client. But whatever it is, you're here and your customer's here, and negotiation process means you've got to get to here, otherwise there's going to be no deal. Now, what that doesn't mean is that you've got a discount. Negotiation does not necessarily, sometimes it does, and some sales trainers are going to say you should never negotiate, you should never discount your product, never, never, never. I'm not in that space, to be absolutely honest. Just to get discounting out of the way, it's a subject all of its own. I believe that if you're going to give me what I want in the time that I want it, and your end of half year is a great way, it's a great time to be having that conversation. I'm always prepared to give a little, concede, if you like, a little bit on price, if I can get something extra in return, perhaps 100 software licenses versus just 50 software licenses, and I'll let you have a slightly better price, that kind of thing. Okay, so it's about bringing people together with what's called a settled agreement, a negotiated agreement, and then closing this out, and then we can kind of move on. That's what negotiation is. And it does suggest an element of compromise on both sides. And just to go to the extreme example, one I can tell you, in the United Kingdom, we are a little bit jaded, a little bit fatigued about hearing about is Brexit, which I would imagine is a global term by now. Most people are going to heard that term, from the UK separating from the European Union or the European Economic Area. There was a lot of ill feeling where one side was felt not to be compromising enough. And that's an example of an extreme example maybe, of where negotiations actually don't go that well because they weren't really conducted in good faith. And it may even come down to your day rate for your consultants, or your class rate for your fantastic cookery classes. So it may be that that's the negotiation. The point is, it's important in your world, whatever your world is. And I'm not even going to go into divorcing couples because that really is a big subject. Okay, right, on the right hand side of that is a really important mantra, and I've repeated it several times throughout this series, is that I believe this, bad business is actually worse than no business at all. Fermin, you run some pretty major customers down there. The guy that used to sit next to me at Hewlett Packard was selling Cisco networking equipment to Reuters, now Thomson Reuters, and he was writing millions of dollars worth of business every single month. And we thought, wow, he's doing fantastic, he's doing really well. But he was losing 30% on every single item that he sold. That's not very motivating. And they were selling services on top of that, which are big margins, and somehow what they talk about is the overall profit on that account was in positive territory. But actually, you'd have probably been better off putting your money in the bank, frankly, to get that kind of return. Anyway, so bad business, therefore, is worse than no business at all. I believe that. Okay, so I wouldn't mind, just in the chat box, talk about negotiating. How comfortable are you with negotiating with prospects or even current customers? How comfortable are you? One, not very confident at all, in which case you're very welcome. And number 10, we ought to swap seats. But I'd be really interested to see where everyone is at in that respect. And I'm going to try and find my chat box just now. I'll put that off to one side. There we go. And we'll come through. Wow, Joanne, you're up at number 8. I'm still going to try and find you something to get you an extra point or so above where you are now. Perhaps we'll get some confidence in there. And Marilyn, thank you very much for your candor in that regard. And I can assure you, lots of people come to these sessions not very confident at all, just looking for some sort of nugget of something. Yep, we can all pick. Every day is a school day, right? Okay, right. So on negotiation, let's have a bit of a. Okay, look, I'm going to fast forward now. The one word that you should be able to point to in a negotiation and describe the outcome, if you like, for you, for your customer, if there are any partners involved, is satisfactory. That is the test. That word, satisfactory. Is everyone satisfied? Is everyone okay? And what that means is, and you've probably heard that phrase, win-win, before, and it suggests that everyone wins the same amount, and the world just doesn't work like that. So if you if you secure a deal, as long as your company is satisfied with that deal, that's good enough. As long as the company that is buying your services, the client, in other words, as long as they're satisfied, then the deal is okay. If anyone walks away with, oh, that is a rubbish deal, I really hate that deal, that spells problems further down the line. And if anyone walks away thinking, that's a fantastic deal, we really exploited that customer, we got tremendous amount of profit out of that deal, I can tell you now, that is also going to spell trouble for you further down the line. So everyone needs to be satisfied. That is the measure. Okay, what's next? Right, here we go then. So to your chat boxes again. This is, I love cars. Most people can relate to cars. Let's just say we won the lottery, the lotteria, and we fancy buying a new car. Just one second, let's let someone in. I'm just going to bring up my chat box again because it seems to have disappeared from view. There we go. There we go. Patrick in Canada, if I remember correctly. Welcome to the call. You've joined us at the right time, Patrick, because we just won the lottery, and we are going to go into a showroom. We've seen a car that we really, really like the look of. And let's pretend it's this one. It's a Bentley Continental. It's a couple of years old. We know from our research online that the price that it's advertised at, and this is in God's money, in pounds sterling, £225,000, we know from our research that actually that's a pretty good price. Okay, so let's say we go into that showroom, and because we're in Yorkshire, where we care, we're really focused on cash and minimizing how much we have to pay for stuff. Let's just say we're going to be really cheeky. We're going to go in there, we're going to talk to the salesperson, and we are going to put an offer in of, let's say this, £180,000. We know that 225 is a pretty good price. Other cars have been exchanging on Auto Trader or whatever it happens to be in your part of the world for that sort of, for a 225. But we're going to put in a price of 180 because I hate paying full price, sticker price for anything. As if anyone knows me, I always try to haggle. So we put in our price for £180,000, and the salesperson says, "Oh, the salesperson says, all right, Keith, we'll take it." How are you feeling now? The sticker price was 225. We've come in with what we think is a really cheeky offer, 180, and then the salesperson says, all right, I'll take it. Tell me in the chat box, what if it all come off of mute? Actually, we can do that. Come off of mute if you're comfortable doing so. What are you thinking? Vermin, did you want to say something?
Well, it will be a good opportunity to share now. Well, my first idea in this level of cars, I say, well, it's a good deal because I will save almost $45,000. So I would say, yeah, it's a good deal. But eventually, maybe I could thought, well, what if I offer 170 instead of 80? Say, would it be possible to reduce more the price?
Well, I don't know. Okay, now maybe I haven't explained that properly. So the price it's advertised at is 225. That's the price on the windscreen. That's the sticker price. We're going to go in. We don't want to pay 225 because I'm in Yorkshire and I don't want to pay full price for anything. I know that already that 225, that's a competitive price. So it's worth that. The market thinks it's worth that money. But I'm going to be really cheeky. I'm going to put in a bid for 180, and just to see what happens. The salesperson says, all right, Keith, I'll let you have it for 180. I'll tell you what's going through my mind. I just want to move this along a little bit. And Patrick, if you want to just come off of mute, you're welcome to wade in here. Welcome, sir.
You know what, if this situation come up, the first question I would ask is how long have you been sitting on this car? And does this represent the very top end of your merchandise threshold? And how many of these have you sold before? Because if they just happen to get one, let's say somebody walks in and says, all right, so here's my Bentley. I have to trade down right now and I want to buy everybody in my family a car. So let's do a deal on the Bentley. I'll go out with 3 cars and good luck.
Okay, all right, I got that. All right, so here's my point. If I go in to the dealership and I offer a cheeky price, then I am and it's accepted straight away. If I'm honest, I'm worried. It's too low. Why is the salesperson caved in straight away? And what's wrong? Has it been a write-off? Now, I use that as an extreme example because we have laws. I'm sure you do in the Americas as well. If it's a write-off, you have to declare it as such on the market. You can't just go around reselling that kind of stuff. We use that as an extreme example. And my point being is it doesn't feel right. Do you remember I said, well, actually, Patrick, you just joined, but on the previous slide, negotiating, what we're talking about negotiating here, it's got to feel a satisfactory outcome for, hey, Patrick, live and in person, right? It's got to feel satisfactory. We've got to feel like we've got a good deal. They've got to feel like they've got a good deal as well. And that's a difficult line. So my point is, make them fight for everything. You've got to haggle, hence my reference. Patrick, with the greatest of respect, you look as though you might remember Monty Python. And if you remember famous sketch, I think it's Life of Brian, oh no, you've got to haggle. There is a human psychology around that process where in negotiation, it's not always about discounting. Often it's about, well, I'd like you to, if you want that price, I want you to buy more. There's some sort of movement around price, volume, maybe even timelines. There's something around that. But in this instance, but it's got to feel right. Everyone's got to, if you fight hard for something, you value it more than if somebody just gives away discount to you with no effort at all. You might even be thinking, God, I should have bid an even lower price. And like Fermin said, I should have bid 170. Then I would have felt like I was getting a good deal. They caved in straight away. Whereas if I go in at 180 and the salesperson and I are haggling for 15, 20 minutes, maybe even 15, 20 days, it doesn't have to be done there and then, I can feel more comfortable with the deal knowing that I've had to fight for it. There's something quite psychological in that. So I just want you to bear that in mind. Okay, so where does negotiation start? When does the negotiation start? I would argue, and I'm very happy we've got a small group today, which is perfect for Zoom. I would argue, I think from the moment your opposite party, your potential customer or your client comes into contact with your brand, it might be online, it might be even passing your shop, when they experience your brand somehow, that's when negotiation starts, because you've set the tone for that relationship. They form a lot of assumptions, a lot of assumptions is absolutely the right word, about your brand, about the way you do business from the moment they come into contact with it. If anyone wants to come off or they've got any questions to ask, please feel free to do that. I'm going to make, because we're on till 2 o'clock UK, and I really appreciate the fact that we've had some, we're a little slow getting going. I'm going to propose, if everyone's okay, that we stick with negotiation until 2 o'clock, and I'll pick up on closing this time next week, unless anyone's aggravated by that. But I want to stick with negotiation. So I believe from your very first bit of social media, if you do printed flyers around your locality or with other businesses, people experience your brand, you set the tone already. Have you got a quality product? You know, are you cheap as chips, as we would say in the United Kingdom? In which case you're setting the tone for the price paid. I'm not in that market. I'm not aware that anyone on this line is in that market. I say Joanne's been ever so quiet. Okay, right. So as soon as they've engaged with your social media profile, if you're sat in reception, if you're going to someone's office to do business with a company, you can tell, is this the quality organization that I want to be working with? That's why investment banks spend so much money on reception, because perception, they want you to feel in somehow inspired, intimidated, pick a word, but they want you to feel something when you're walking in to reception to do business with them, whether you're selling to them or whether they're working on a merger and acquisition for you. But the perception is set the expectation is set in reception. Your first meeting eyeballing someone, whether it be on screen as we are now, or whether it be actually in person. In the United Kingdom, we have started in-person meetings now, although I don't know about anyone else on this call. I have baked in a Zoom interim or a Teams interim meeting before I'll travel to actually go out and see someone. And in many instances, I never actually get to meet my clients in person because there's no need. Video communications is good enough. So, and if you're good enough at communicating, then that is often good enough. All right, especially if they want to save travel costs. Okay, so your first meeting, again, we're setting the tone. And by default, even if you do nothing, we've already set the tone. Was I on time for this? Me, I'm talking about. I was on time. I've set the tone. I hope that whoever's listening to this in the future and whoever's on the call just now, I've set the tone that I don't know, I've got some experience in negotiation, of all kinds of negotiation. And I would never call myself an authority figure. That's for other people to call me, or otherwise. I'll let my audience dictate that badge, if you like. But we have set a tone of some kind, and hopefully that my tone resonates with people on the call and people watching this as well. But we are setting a tone no matter what we do. That's my point. So make sure it's the best impression possible. On time, the technology works, all of those things. I've got the links out in good time, albeit number of people having difficulty logging on today. Okay, now this is what I would call the meat and potatoes, and apologies to any vegetarians, but this is the meat and potatoes of negotiation, is understanding who's in the pound seat or the dollar seat, Canadian, or whatever it happens to be, but who's in the pound seat? What is the positional power of your offer and your customer's business? There is a power play which they will almost certainly try to exercise if they've got any sense. When we walked into the Bentley showroom to buy that car, we might feel that we're in the pound seat because we're doing the buying. They want our money, we want the car. But can anyone think of some instances in that instance, and maybe cars unfair, but you know, I know about cars. Can anyone think of an instance where, as a buyer of that car, I may not be in the power seat, in the pound seat? Could there be anything about that car that might make the salesperson more powerful?
Scarcity.
What was that? Sorry, scarcity.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, Bentley is particularly in the old days, is the kind of manufacturer, it's the kind of product where there's scarcity. Are you an economist, Patrick?
Only when I don't meet my bills.
Okay, all right. Sorry, Joanne, you were coming in there.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's interesting. You're talking about cars because we just bought back our leased car, and it totally is scarcity here in, well, I guess depending on the car, right? We bought an Audi. And yeah, so they're basically in the power seat because this is the price. And you can just either take it or leave it, but that's basically your leased, you know, your buyback from the lease. So there's no negotiating in any aspect, even though, you know, we didn't even approach the amount of mileage that we should have had, you know, in the last 4 years. So we were trying to negotiate a better price because of the fact that the car hasn't been used that much, given COVID, et cetera.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a point, right? Like it was just, this is what it is after the 4 years, you know, this is what you got. So anyway, we tried to throw in a few things.
Actually, do you know what? Because if you don't try, it's an automatic no. anyway, right?
Yeah.
So,
So
and actually, I'm really glad you mentioned, because, you know, maybe Bentley, maybe that was a poor example, cars or any electronic components right here, right now. Patrick mentioned scarcity just now. It's an economic term, but most people would recognize what that means. Semiconductors, anything that involves semiconductors right now, whether it's IT, whether it's cars, whether it's nuclear power stations, anything that is dependent on semiconductors in your purchase, automatically there's a scarcity of that in the market. And hence, when you were going in, Joanne, to negotiate for your car, you know, if you there is a shortage of these components, and the whole supply demand curve here is not linear, and it's not in equilibrium yet. There's a constant tension right now. So you don't have much negotiating power right here, right now. And that dynamic has changed. Typically, when you, let's say 3 years ago, before pandemic and before semiconductor shortages, typically the power would have been in the buyer. They want to sell cars, you want to buy cars. You would have been certainly closer, and you would probably be able to negotiate yourself a deal in terms of a discount. Whereas now the market conditions have changed, and all of a sudden semiconductors, all of that, you haven't got that power now, because if you won't pay that price, somebody else will.
the other thing I want to add is,
Yeah.
as a buyer too, like in this particular scenario, you know, we thought we can just walk away from this, but we knew, you know, this car, this model A3, I mean, it's a standard model, but they can easily turn it around. You know, the dealer can turn it around and sell it for like another 10 to 15,000 more than what we're buying it at, what we're buying back. So as a buyer, I think you also have to think in yourself, okay, the value to you, but, you know, considering we've already put so much in there, that it made a lot of sense for us to just buy it back, because it's worth more to us than knowing what they're going to go back and resell it for.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just another step in terms of thinking through the whole value, what it means for the buyer. But
so that's the point. That's a really great point, Joanne. The point is that value is a bit like beauty, actually. It's in the eyes of the beholder. So value to you wasn't the same value to the dealership.
yeah.
So, and if you're charging, and we're talking about cars, but actually the same is true for everything, in particular services as well. It's a relative value thing. And thank you for giving us that context. That makes things come to life. So I really appreciate that, Joanne. Thank you. Okay, so it's about balancing your needs, and it's not always just about price. Patrick's mentioned scarcity, semiconductors, all of that, what's going on. Chamonix, there is only one Saturday, the 16th of July. So if you've got a company, I think that was Saturday, 16th of July, just gone. So if you've got a company that really wants that date, but you've also got another company that's also interested in that date for their team, that puts you potentially in the power seat, in the pound seat, because you've got the scarcity. There's only one of you, but you've got the ideal scenario where you've got multiple people after that date. Now, I'm not saying you should exploit that power, but what I am, because, you know, everyone's got to be satisfied with the outcome. Remember that, what we talked about earlier. You cannot feel ripped off. That's gonna, and you would never do that, Chamonix, I know, but you cannot rip people off. You cannot be, shall we say, opportunistic. We can, but you've got to know that comes with potential repercussions on reputation, on all of those things. If you want to go back and deal again, that's going to come back and, you know, potentially bite you.
I actually think you're going to see a really big change in the market. It's coming quickly. I put a post up on Bob Berg's LinkedIn post. Joanne would be a good one to have a look at. When I worked at the Toronto Star in 1981, interest rates were 20%. And so under those conditions, what happens is the marketing budgets are the first things to collapse. And the thing that collapses right after that is is training. So the Toronto Star cut everything to the bone. I remember getting hauled into somebody's office for buying a client a $5 lunch when we were selling the paper at $20,000 a page. But what the Toronto Star did was, and we had over 100 reps, I think it was 120 of us on the floor. They brought in professional sales training at the very apex of inflation when everything was falling apart. And what happened was that while everybody was curling up into the fetal position, the Toronto Star was reloading their cannons. And when we came out of that, the Toronto Star actually got to the point where, to your point, Keith, people were calling in, they were saying, all right, so I want to book a page on Saturday, 20 grand. And we would say, sorry, the presses are at max. What about Friday? Sorry, the presses are at max. How does Sunday or Monday feel to you? Or how do you feel a week down the road? Well, if you're a retailer, or let's say, Joanne, you're at the end of your quarter and you really got to hit numbers, you got to get something out there. It might be in the Globe and Mail, which is Canada's business newspaper. You got to hit it really hard and just say, you know, we got an amazing offer, but you can't tell anybody it's worthless. And that's where inflation for sellers becomes a gigantic, an absolutely immense leverage point.
That's a really good shout. A really good shout. Thank you. Thank you on that. So isn't it interesting? There are lots of, even if you sell something relatively straightforward, what we might call, well, if it's more complex, it's called a highly considered purchase, whatever the opposite of highly considered is. If it's more of a commodity sort of play, there are still lots and lots of different dynamics that you have to consider when negotiating, when pricing things correctly, and all the rest of it. And would you know what? It's been fascinating, but we are almost out. I am so thrilled that there's been so much engagement, and I'm really grateful for that. I am going to whiz through the next couple of slides so we can kind of finish off this segment, if you like, and then I'll talk about closing next week. Okay, so how to be in the pound seat. Have the preferred value proposition. Okay, now that may sound obvious, but you've got the product, the service at the time, and you've confirmed that with, sorry, looking at the camera, and you've confirmed that with the customer. They believe, they agree, you've got the best value proposition for them. And that way, that puts you in the pound seat. Again, mustn't exploit that, because that's very short term, but that will inoculate you, protect you against having to discount, because you've got the power position. You know everything about that client's needs, and we talked about that a couple of sessions ago around listening, around really understanding what the customer really wants to buy, and confidence, personal self-confidence in yourself, in what you sell, and in that value proposition. Now, I'm not a mindset guru, but I know enough about this to know that self-esteem is something I have struggled with for a long, long time, for many complex reasons. But you are the person who gives yourself permission to excel at negotiating, or not. Okay, so you've got to get you right as well. And that might be a little deep for late in this sort of session, but there are lots of mindset coaches on LinkedIn. I encourage you, if this is an area that you want to look at, then I would absolutely encourage you to but your confidence is an amazing amount of difference that can, no matter what techniques you might have, you know, strategies, your personal self-confidence, I'm convinced, is the #1 material contributor to whether you come away with a satisfactory deal or not. And if it's a real complex deal, a highly considered one, let's say, you've got to have the support in the account, in your organization, in any partner organizations. If you're in a consortium, you've got to have the support of everyone in that, involved in that deal, in that transaction, to have power in the negotiations. So you can have confidence in what you're doing. Also, and again, we're over time, you've got to have a best possible result. I give myself what I call a floor and a ceiling. A best possible result, that's what I'd ideally like to achieve, but this is the minimum acceptable result. Unless I can do that, I'm going to walk away. That's the process that I go through. One more thing, and then we're going to start to wipe up. I don't know about you, Patrick. I get the impression, if you don't mind me saying so, you've negotiated one or two things in your past. And I know for sure that Shamini has, because we've been through that process together. So you'll probably know in the communications breakdown, the pie chart, Morabian diagram, which I've talked about in previous series, only 7% of a communication process is around the words that you utter. The rest of it is how you utter them and your body language and all of that. So I'm going to give you a takeaway just now where you can politely decline a deal, and you don't even have to say anything. Okay, so Furman's come into the, I'm the salesperson. Furman's come into the showroom, the dealership, to buy that Bentley that we talked about earlier, and he's going to offer me $180,000 for it. I'm not even going to say no. I'm going to go like that. That's called your professional flinch. And you need one of those. If you're selling, whether you're on screen or whether you're in person, you need a professional flinch, because I may not know all the science around this, but I can tell you it works. And if you have confidence in what you're doing, your professional flinch is really important. And that keeps them talking about your price. That's the theory. You don't even have to say no, because often when you say no, the inference is that you're going to come back with a counter offer. So I always give a professional flinch and wait for them, silence. That's something we'll talk about next week. And I make them come back with a second offer, and I see how much delta there is between their first offer and their second offer, and then I've got a feel for how much they're going to move on their price. So it might be a little deep and complex for the latest on, and we are definitely out of time, but I'm going to leave you that, a professional flinch. Patrick, Furman, Shamini, any thoughts? And Marilyn and Joanne as well, any thoughts on that?
How do you do it through mail?
Big question. How do you do that through mail? I don't know the answer to that, but I'll bet there's a way to do it. Can you let me put some thought into that? And I'll follow up. I'll follow up with a video.
Can I throw something at you? So I went to buy a car about a year ago, and just going through a little bit of a transition with some finances and family and a whole bunch of other things. And I just needed to move into a better car, but I was kind of between situations, if you will. I walked into the dealership and I said, hi, I'm interested in buying a car today. Take me out and show me what the best deal is on the lot. It happened to be a Honda. And I'm a Toyota guy. So I just sort of said, listen, I'm facing a few challenges right now. They're kind of extraordinary. I need your help. So I have the money, I have the cash, but I need your help. And I'm going to take this car out for a test drive. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to sit down and have a conversation between yourselves to arrive at an elegant price. Because if you can arrive at an elegant price, I can push my credit card across the table today, close the deal, and we will walk. I came back, the salesperson invited me in to see the sales manager. He said, we were listening to you. He says, we're going to give you 7% off the automobile. And it had quite a few kilometers on it, right? And I said, well, that's pretty nice. And he said, have you considered extended warranty? And I said, well, I didn't think you'd be able to get something on a car over 100,000. He said, oh yeah, there's new plans now. I said, so roughly what would that cost? And he says, well, it's around, it's around $800 or $900, but close to 1,000. I said, geez, isn't that interesting? Because that's the 7% that I saved. So you know what? I want it all. So what I did was I walked out with a used car in mint condition and got several years of extended warranty for exactly the same price that if I would have walked in and said, I'll just take it. But what I did was the unnegotiation. So usually what I do when I buy cars is I hold a lottery. So I know exactly what car I want. I know every tiny little thing about that car. I go to 3 different dealerships that have the same car. I say, what's your best price? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a decision within 24 hours. I will not tell you what the other 2 dealerships' prices are, but the best deal wins.
Yeah.
That's typically the way I do it. It's called the lottery. You'll see it at the back of my book, Unlocking Yes. But in this particular case, I flipped it upside down and I said, I don't have any leverage, but what I do have is emotional pull, and I have cash.
That works. Money talks. I like that. Now, back in, I want to wind this up now. But selling services into the City of London, we would have called that a blind auction, where you're effectively getting the price bid down to provide those services. Or reverse auction, I beg your pardon, a reverse auction we would have called that. But I get the principle very much. Listen, that's been really that's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed the engagement with everyone on the call today. I just want to kind of fast forward. Next week, I'm going to do the closing thing. We're going to talk about the 5 primary closes that you can talk about. We're going to talk about micro commitments. We're going to talk about all sorts of things, and I'll send the invites out afterwards. And I hope. Listen, thank you very much. I'll send the recording out when it's done, all the rendering and all of that. But thank you very much for your engagement, everyone, today. Thank you. I hope it's been really, really enlightening, and thank you all for engaging and giving your point of view, and you've brought it all to life. Thank you. I appreciate that. And just keep cool for the rest of the day. And it's 38 degrees outside. We're not used to it, so I'm looking forward to seeing you next week if you're around. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Good day, everybody. Bye now.
Thanks, Patrick. Take care, everyone.